Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another beautiful day with us on Live with Lloyd. I am your host, astronumerologist Lloyd Strayhorn. The distinguished gentleman you see uh, on the flyer is a gentleman that we've known each other over 40, maybe going on definitely over 40, 45 years, that's for sure. We have what y'all say a history. We've known each other since the days of Harlem, the Trees of Life. One of the things is he is a three-time Guinness record holder, and he is the one that I mentioned in the book that he consulted me on these occasions. So for that, I am forever thankful. So if I tell people that, yes, I help a person or assisted in some way through dates or whatever, get the person who did 3 Guinness records. And if you think it's easy, he's going to explain how it started, what the process is, and everything. But before we do that, before we bring him on, I need to tell you that this week's show is brought to you by Brother Richard Woods. Now, Richard Woods was a guest on the show. He was on a couple of times. He was on with, I think, Brandon and Rebels Bay, him and myself. And so he's now successfully has launched his own YouTube channel. There it is right there. But he is sponsoring this week's show, and I am forever thankful for Richard for that. And today is it's Monday, April 3rd, 2023. The sun is in Aries. The moon is in Virgo, which happens to be the zodiac sign of my guest that's about to come on. It's an 11 universal month, a 3 universal week, and he is born on the 21st, not to rub it in, but he is, oh man, I left out a date. Man, no matter how much I do this. Anyway, it's a 5 universal day. Sagittarians, Pisces, Gemini, and my guest Virgo, or those born on the 3rd, the 5th, the 12th, the 14th, the 21st, which is missing, the 23rd, and the 30th of the month. Well, that's the beauty of what we do. One of the things, it is live. Hold on. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Now, before I bring him on, I want to bring on a presentation that he did, and here we go right here. Okay, there we go. Let me see. Down low, let me see. Oh, I think I pressed here. Nope, I just removed it. Let me see. Where do we go here with this? Nope. There we go.
Aloha. There were 4 people standing at the foot of Mount Everest. The first person was a celebrity who was filming a public service announcement extolling the beauty and grandeur that is Mount Everest and imploring people not to pollute it as they ascended and descended the mountain. The second person was a PhD who's written extensively on the geography, topography, and climate changes that occur as you ascend and descend the mountain. The third person is a medical doctor who has examined more people who have made the climb than any other medical doctor. And the fourth person was a Sherpa who holds the Guinness Book World Record for making the climb up Mount Everest more times than any other human being. Now, when you get ready to actually climb Mount Everest, which one of those 4 people do you have the most confidence will be able to take you to the summit and bring you back down to the base? The year 2023 represents 51 years that I have been practicing whole food, plant-based nutrition. The year 2023 also represents 45 years that I have been the Guinness Book World Record holder in the name of advocating the concept of whole food, plant-based nutrition. I hope that after you've read my book, New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program, as well as reviewed my resume, you will find that you and I will be a good fit for me to help you fulfill your goals in life. Until we meet again, this is Donald Spiderman Thomas bidding you aloha.
Aloha, Donald. How are you?
Aloha, good brother.
How is everything on the big island over there in Hawaii?
Oh, things are sunny and bright today. I have to say.
That's good. You know, Donald, what makes it amazing is every time we try to do something, at least I know every time you do something, it's always around your numbers of 3 or 6 or 9. And you mentioned that today, and I swear, when we made this appointment to schedule you to come on, which is about weeks or about a month ago, I had no idea that this day was more significant than you just being on. Can you explain yourself, please, sir?
Well, uh, you and I were both teachers at the Tree of Life School we met in the 1970s. And when I got ready I wrote my book on health and nutrition. And being a guy from Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, I didn't have any money to speak of. And I found a way to promote my book by using my book to do a Guinness Book World Record. And because I was writing that book in the name of it being the student handbook for the Tree of Life, I wanted to try to include as many of the concepts that the Tree of Life taught as possible in doing that record. And so I came to you and I said, hey, Lloyd, I'm getting ready to do a Guinness record. Numerology is supposedly based upon the idea of what's your best numbers. Here's the numbers that I'm going for. What do you think would be the best record for me to go for? What's the best numbers for me to go for? And that's where our relationship began. And as I say to people, the numerologist didn't tell me to break a record. I asked the numerologist what would be the best numbers to break the record. And I've been using that system and your system ever since to break records. And the simple fact that 1988, I started on April 1st, I finished on April 3rd. And that was my third Guinness Book World Record, and which was my goal. My goal was to have 3 Guinness Book World Records in the name of demonstrating my program of sports nutrition, motivation, physical fitness. And so when it's all said and done, by using those numbers, yes, today I am a 3-time Guinness Book World Record holder, specifically in the name of health and nutrition.
And this is record number 3, is that correct?
Today's record is record number 3. This is the anniversary.
And by the way, for those who have doubts, this is officially his certificate of the Guinness Book of Records. And we're going to talk about how it was then, back in that day, as they call it, versus now. So your first one was when?
First Guinness record was done September 18 through 22nd, 1978 at the Tree of Life School, located on 125th, and then it was Lenox Avenue. Shows you about how things have changed. It was Lenox Avenue when I did the record. It's Malcolm X Boulevard now. That record was based upon the actual book that I wrote titled The Philosophy of Divine Nutrition.
Yep. So this is record number 1.
Number 1.
And then record number 2?
Record number 2 was done at City College of New York. I attended City College of New York up on 137th and Convent Avenue. And as a matter of fact, one day coming from City College down the street to 125th, that's when I discovered the Tree of Life. And so that first after dinner speech record, and here's the logic. I'm a nutritionist saying that I have a sports nutrition program. What can athletes and other people use for more energy other than drugs? And so when I looked in that Guinness book, I saw after dinner speech. I said, oh, okay. I could give a demonstration of what type of foods I'm advocating an athlete and other people could use for more energy. And by demonstrating those foods to the point where I could break a world record, I think that would be a pretty convincing way of showing you what type of diet I was talking about.
And so this is that second record at City College.
Second record at City College. And in the Guinness book, I'm in the 1986 and 87 Guinness book for that particular record that you have up. The title of that speech was The History of Herbs in Maintaining Physical Fitness.
And to show this is us at that time after breaking that second record. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was done at City College in the Grand Hall at City College of New York.
Would you like to let people know who was one of your massage people?
A young brother by the name of, well, he was Brother Kabir to me. Young brother, he went on to be Wesley Snipes.
Brother Wesley Snipes, and went on to be my client as well.
All right.
So it just shows that this is a small world. So, folks, this is a back in the day when Donald and I was hanging tough. He was breaking records, and I was extremely, extremely honored that he would consult me. So
Every
these are nice. Go ahead, Donald. What you was about to
I
say?
just said it, every time. That's when I got ready to do a record. I said, I mean, you know, records, numbers don't break records. People break records. But if, as they say, the racer's edge. If there's any sort of an edge that you can get, well, for an athlete in particular, it's one of the things I even recommend to people who will be their athletes, etc. Find your numbers. If you're in a particular sport, have a goal for your sport, and that goal would be a number. All right, and once you hit that number, aloha.
But you know, that's interesting because a lot of athletes take pride whether they go from one franchise to another, like a Kyrie Irving, in wearing, like in his case, number 11, or he tries to carry. And I guess for an athlete, one of the honors is to have that number retired from the franchise, never to be worn again.
Exactly.
As long as the franchise exists, whoever comes in, they don't care if it's Michael Jordan. No, you can't put on that jersey.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So numbers are very significant in all sports. You know, just by the and business. You know, if you're a business person, every year you have a particular goal of what you want to make for that year, or how many units you want to sell. And so the more that you can use numerology to really kind of focus on, okay, for this year we want to make X amount, then that just gives you a goal that you can hit to. People never forget, in Japan, every building that they build is based upon feng shui and other metaphysics for business purposes. Now, people can laugh at that, but the Japanese are doing very well in business all over the world. And they always use those sort of concepts. And so I was aware of that. A family from mainland China is the ones that I first became hooked up with when I first started receiving acupuncture. The acupuncturist's mother, she's the one that introduced me to Chinese philosophy, Chinese herbs, and so on. So there are many places in the world where these things are common day ideas. This is how you do business. You know, this is how you start your business with certain things. And people are doing well with it. So if it helps you, use it.
Let me ask you this, Donald. What was the requirement back in the day in the 70s when you first started to apply for Guinness? People think you can just walk up and say, I'm going to do a Guinness record. Right. Can you tell people what it was then and what it's like now?
Okay. Well, as I say, I'm an OG, original Guinness. Those Guinness certificates that you put up, they are signed by the original publishers, Norris and Donald McWhirter. Those are some of the original, yes, you do Donald McFarlane and Norris McWhirter. Those are some of the original publishers of the Guinness Book of Records itself. Now, back in the 1970s, for any Guinness record, you would first contact the Guinness Book and find out what the current record is. Because even if you were holding up, let's say if I had the 2023 Guinness Book and I looked at a record, somebody may have broken that record since the book was published. So the first thing you do is contact the Guinness Book to find out what is the most current record that you're interested in. After that, back in the day and even now, the Guinness Book required that you have radio, TV, and or newspaper coverage. And for any endurance event, an endurance event was anything that lasted for at least an hour. Well, put it this way, a witness was someone who stayed for an hour over the age of 18. And that's how you had to have your witnesses. Now, as I was saying, back in my day, the Guinness Book did not have an entry fee. Today, it's a $600 entry fee, $800 if you want them to expedite reviewing your record attempt.
Rewind. So when you first started in 78,
there was no fee.
Nothing, not a fee at all to register.
Nothing.
Try to attempt to break a record.
That's right.
Fast forward 2023.
$600 entry fee or $800 if you want them to expedite reviewing your case. And let me give you an example of that. I did my first Guinness record in September of 1978. The Guinness Book for 79 came out like in December of the preceding year. It was too late for me to get into that 79 Guinness Book. But they used to have something called late entry. Now that they have that $800 expediting fee, if you had spent the $800, they would speed up reviewing your record, and you might have been able, or I might have been able to get into that 1979 edition. I'm in the 1980, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Guinness Book for the sermon record. 1986 and 87 for the first after dinner speech record, and 1989 for the third, which is today's record. So the only 2 years that I'm not in the Guinness Book of Records is 1985 and 1988. And those are the 2 years that I was actually breaking records.
That's interesting. And
I'm a man of the 80s.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how that happens to be. What is the whole thing about the Guinness records? Now they got Guinness books, they got Guinness museums. I mean, they've just really grown. How long has the Guinness been in existence? The Guinness record.
Guinness Book of Records came out in the mid 1950s, and it was I forget their names now, but basically it was almost like a bar sort of a thing, where the guys at the bar would talk about who's got the fastest dog, who's got the biggest truck, et cetera, et cetera. And from that, the brewers of the Guinness Brewery, they are the ones that took on actually publishing the Guinness Book of Records. And so that Guinness Stout that you see, the people who produce Guinness Stout are the ones who produce the book. As time went on, the whole point of the Guinness Book of Records is, well, who's the best? I'll never forget one time the late gentleman, his name, I skipped his name just that quick, but David Frost, he used to have a show.
Interviewer. Yeah.
And he made the statement. He said, one of the things I like about hosting this show, the people who are going for these Guinness records, they're going for the title Best in the World. Now, records are made to be broken. But as I always say, with a few examples, once a Miss America, always a Miss America. Once an Academy Award winner, always an Academy Award winner. Once a world record holder, always a world record holder. Even though records are made to be broken and someone will break your records, once you are a world record holder, you are in an elite club that you can never leave. And the idea of being a world record holder is being the fastest man in the world. He's in the Guinness book. You are one of the best that has ever done that particular thing, even if it's something silly, spitting watermelon seeds. There's actually
I was going to say now they'll have a Guinness record for almost anything you could
almost
think of.
Almost anything.
Or pushing a peanut with your nose down the street.
Down the street or anything.
Crazy stuff.
And but as silly as it is, or some of the things can be, the point is that if it's a world record, it's still you're the only person that was able to take it that far. Now, for example, based upon everything that I've researched, there's only been 8 to 10 people who've ever talked longer than 93 consecutive hours in world history. So as long as human beings have been able to talk, there's been less than 10 people who've been able to talk for 93 hours or longer.
Well, I tell you this, I bear witness. I was at all 3 of your events.
All three. And see, as part when you do numerology or astrology, they didn't tell me that I was going to break world records, but if people knew my numbers and so on, part of what it would say is that I could be a counselor, I could be a public speaker, I could be a minister. So that's the purpose of really getting into numerology and astrology, to kind of help you really focus on your life path. Like I said to people, the numerologist didn't tell me to break the record. I asked the numerologist, what's the best numbers to break? And taking that, I went from there.
Well, I tell you this, you know how to make a brother proud. That's all I can say.
All right.
Tell us about your book.
This is the first edition. There are now 3 editions of this book, but New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program is my first Guinness record was titled Philosophy of Divine Nutrition.
Yep.
My second book was titled The Way of PDN. PDN stands for Philosophy of Divine Nutrition, the Ultimate Vegetarian Athletic Nutrition Program. First book, 1977, copyright. Second book, 1985, copyright. As they say, publish or perish. New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program is the revised and updated version of those 2 books that I use to break Guinness Book World Records. So all of the information regarding nutrition and fitness that I had written about in those first 2 books, I brought it on over into modern times and brought it up to date. And as I say, the picture that you showed there, that's edition number 1. Right now, if you go to my website, newjumpswing.com, you can download an ebook that is the third and most updated version of New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program.
When you started this journey, you know, the one thing that we had talked about before going on the show is that you and I have been steadfast in what we do since we've known each other since the 70s. I
Yes.
started numerology, actually, well, anyway, it was in the 70s. I'll leave it at that. And I have been consistent in what I do ever since then. You have also been consistent, which leads me to this question. You have always been ahead of the curve in nutrition. Were you sickly or challenged with health or something that made you go in this direction?
You know, I had two aspects to that answer. Number one, I had a mother who was a fantastic Southern cook. I can remember at 5 years of age eating salad with lettuce and shredded carrots and raisins and everything else. My grandfather was a very successful farmer in South Carolina. And so the idea of a diet of high fruits and vegetables was a normal part of my diet. I was, as I said, my mother was a Southern cook, so I ate pork and fried chicken and everything else. But the idea of a lot of fruits and vegetables was a normal part of my life. When it comes to my personal illnesses, I was always suffering with sinusitis. From October to March, I would be stuffed up. And that sinusitis would go into postnasal drip, which would give me a bronchitis symptoms. And then even though I used to exercise and I used to drink a lot of milk, around the age of 12, I developed very painful knees. And
Really?
at the age of 12, one day I was playing and I bent down playing Ring Alivio. I always remember it. And I bent down and I got a sharp pain. And I write about this in my book. I got a pain in my right knee. And I'm a kid, so I just shrugged it off and went on playing. About a week or so later, I had pain in the left knee. And that pain stayed with me from the age of 12 until the age of 19. I met a medical doctor by the name of Dr. Joel Teicher, Brook Orthopedic Associates, right there in Brooklyn. And he diagnosed my disease as Osgood-Schlatter disease, a very painful knee disease that was normal among active boys. The knee bone is one of the last ones to harden. And if you do a lot of running and jumping, part of why they call me Spider-Man, you can wind up having that problem. And when upon surgery, and to show you how long ago this was, I had my knee surgery in 1973. I spent 18 days in the hospital because I had approximately 12 pieces of bone chips removed from each knee. That same surgery, yes, that same surgery would be overnight, literally. That was before arthroscopic surgery. So literally, I was in the hospital for 18 days. During the time of convalescing, I read a book, I read a magazine, and the magazine talked about rope jumping. And it talked about how, whereas you run, you come down with 3 to 5 times your weight on your heels. But when you jump rope, you're on the balls of your feet. I didn't start jumping rope until a good year and a half, 2 years after the surgery. That's when I focused on my nutrition and just getting stronger. But that's when I was first introduced to rope jumping as an alternative to, if Spider-Man was going to swing again, it'd have to be swinging with a rope and not jumping off of roofs.
And in fact, how did you name yourself Donald Spider-Man Thomas? Because I was going to ask you when you brought that up. How did you get that Spider-Man?
Spider-Man was a nickname given to me in Tilden Canarsie Day Camp when I was still in elementary school. Spider-Man comic book had come out and I was a big fan. Just to tell you, give the listeners an idea, I have a internet website, a comic book internet website. The Holy Grail, the trio of comic book collecting is Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. Right now, there are approximately 910 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man. I own 909.
Excuse me. How many issues and how many do you possess?
Put it this way. I needed number 1 to own every Amazing Spider-Man that there ever has been published. And I have always been a Spider-Man collector. I also own every Black Panther comic book that there is too. I was a big comic book collector, Spider-Man and Black Panther.
You have these action comic books in your collection?
Not only do I have them in my collection, but to show you, as I say to people, somebody asks, oh, what are you going to do with that collection? I said, when I retire, I'll think about what I do with it. As a part of my funding of my life coaching business, I am now selling that Spider-Man collection on eBay. And every one of those comics goes for several hundred, if not a few $1,000s.
That's interesting. And because when I was in your home in Hawaii, you showed me magazine collections of books, and I was just floored. But I
Well,
didn't know Spider-Man had produced over 900 issues. Well, how many issues did Black Panther do?
there's approximately 200 and so many Black Panther issues. And Black Panther first came out in Fantastic Four, number 52 and 53. Then he went on to have his own comic book series. But every Black Panther I have, and as you and I know, if you read the last chapter of my book, Philosophy of Divine Nutrition, I talk about the need for greater diversity within comics, within youth literature. And I specifically spoke about Black Panther, Luke Cage, and the Falcon. Just in terms of examples, this was in the 70s, the need for more diversity, more women, more people of color in the comic book superhero genre. So again, I've been out there.
You know, and fast forward now, that's all they talk about: diversity here,
Diversity in comic books, be
yeah,
female superheroes, Black superheroes, Hispanic superheroes, gay superheroes. I was advocating all of that in my book of Philosophy of Divine Nutrition, 1977.
What is it so important about when people get sick? One of the things to do is, for example, I saw a clip recently of a woman who said how she was really not feeling good and stuff, and she decided to go on a 30-day fruit diet. And by the end of that 30 days, she said she was a completely different woman. She had no pains, no discomforts. What is it? Is there something about the foods we're eating nowadays, Donald?
Well, yes, for quite some time. Again, my grandfather was a very successful farmer. When I would go down to South Carolina, as I walked around his farm, there was this big pile and it smelled. It was a manure patch, they called it. That was the only sort of fertilizer that they used. That's called organic fertilizer now. But
interesting.
That's organic fertilizer now. So they were always using organics up until maybe around the 1950s or so. And then they came out with the chemical fertilizers. The chemical fertilizers, while they may grow the food fast, they don't have anywhere near the minerals and so on that the whole plant needs. When I talk to people who come from the South, come from the Caribbean, come from Africa, I say to them, ask your grandparents what they ate. You will see that, example, in the South, if I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken right now, I can get a bucket of 12 chicken wings. Nobody on a farm killed 6 chickens in a night to get, okay? So we eat far more than we normally eat. The food is not grown on the same quality of soil. We also eat a lot of processed foods, especially we as a people of color eat a lot of processed foods. One of the things that I was getting across to people, if you go to the American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, American Diabetes Association, and look at what they're advocating as far as diet, all of those things are telling people to cut down on red meat, cut down on saturated fats. Now you go on television, look at how many Black athletes and entertainers are promoting every new meat sandwich that's on the market. We have the meats, and so on and so on. So while the general public is being educated to stay away from that stuff, they're pushing it on us even more.
Yeah, but then, because I understand that they're projecting about coming out with fake meat, where chicken is not really chicken, but fake chicken. Beef is not really beef, but fake beef. They said they'll take a couple of genes and then they'll do something with it. And in about 10 or 15 years, we as adults, or much less the children of the future, wouldn't know the difference. And they thinking they make chicken, and it really was grown in a lab.
Right. And just to go back to your point as far as the lady, one of the things just about any illness, and even myself, even though I may not look it, I've gained about 15, 20 pounds over the years. And regardless of the type of diet and exercise I'm on, I know that weight gain has kind of boosted up my blood pressure, not to the point that I'm in trouble, but it's brought it up beyond what I want it to be. Any diet that you go on, if you lose weight, it's going to lower your cholesterol, it's going to lower your blood pressure, and 9 times out of 10, you will feel better. If you have any kind of joint problems, you lose 5 or 10 pounds, you're taking more weight off of those joints. And so those weight loss in general helps with just about any illness. Now, an exclusive fruit diet, what's the gentleman that was with Apple Computer? Steve Jobs. Yeah. See, you don't wait until you get diagnosed with with a deadly disease, and then you decide that you're going to get radical. The idea is to try to incorporate more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains into your diet on a regular basis so that it is a normal thing for you to do. That all fruit diet, the young man, not Jared Kushner, the gentleman who played him in the movie, who played Steve Jobs in the movie, he tried to go on Steve Jobs' diet. He got sick because you're not going to live off of just fruits for the rest of your life. Fruits are very good.
Mm-hmm.
But, as I also say, common sense is not as common as you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have a varied diet. Again, you go back to, you talk to your grandparents. People in the South always had some kind of greens, collard greens, kale, mustard greens, a regular part of their diet. Black-eyed peas, sweet peas, snap peas, always a regular part of the diet. So much of this stuff that they're referring to as health food now, you go back 50, 60 years, that's what people in general ate. So, it's not as radical as people think, but we've lost connection with our grandparents and people. But if you can talk to those people, they'll tell you what they ate, and they didn't eat all of this stuff. My mother used to talk about how candy was a luxury. Maybe you got it on Saturday and you got a piece or two. Now you have candies 24/7 if the kid wants it, with the bad teeth to go with it.
Well, it's interesting because I know as a child visiting the South, when my parents would send me to visit my grandmother, very few went to a hospital.
Right.
Whatever discomforts or illnesses they had,
right.
It was in the backyards.
That's right.
Backyard somewhere. Okay.
That's right. They had herbs.
So when a person in those communities had to go to a hospital, that was almost like
they were in bad shape. They were in bad shape.
No choice. But
that's right.
So does this explain why in our communities that when it comes to the health issues, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, they're almost always in our community. I mean, it's across the board nowadays, but primarily, especially obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, those are kind of like the big three in our communities. And again, only because now stores, if you go into a bodega or other little small shops, the first thing they got, even if you go to a department store like a Target or Walmart, when you're coming through the cash register, there's rows and rows of candy.
That's right. To go back to what we were talking about, and again, not only was I talking about the need for diversity within youth culture, in 1978, the term minority health disparities had not been coined yet. The idea that African Americans, Native Hawaiians, Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans had higher rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, etc. That is an essential part of every Guinness record that I have done. At the time in 1978, when I went to the Heart Association literature and I looked at race, African American was a risk factor. When I went to the Cancer Society literature, African American was a risk factor. When I went to Diabetes Association, African American was a risk factor, but it was not recognized as one conglomerate of what they refer to now as minority health disparities. If you go to the website for the Center for Disease Control, they have a complete department now for that. In 1988, the last record that I did, I read from the LA Times, where one of the last things that then President Clinton had ordered was that the CDC and the Department of Health look into the concept of minority health disparities. So as a people, I was talking to someone the other day and I said, back in the 70s, there were Black people that used to argue with me. Air pollution has nothing to do with Black people. Water pollution has nothing to do with Black people. Well, ask the Black people in Flint, Michigan, if water pollution has anything to do with us. In most of the so-called Chinatowns, those Chinatowns are located in very dense areas where trucks and everything else is coming through. Those communities have higher rates of respiratory illnesses. So the whole study of minority health disparities, that is something that I have focused on from my earliest days. Even before I wrote books, I was on that path in terms of realizing that as a people, there's no disease that we have that other people don't have. We have higher percentages of it. And when it comes to heart disease, as I mentioned in my book, symptoms of heart disease coming on African Americans sometimes 10 years earlier than those same symptoms come upon Caucasians.
Mhm,
We
mhm.
all have the bad diet, but our diet is even more processed in many cases. Our kids are going to McDonald's more often than that affluent child. You know, we're eating the expression "don't drink the Kool-Aid." Well, it just so happens if you go on YouTube and you look at that Jim Jones tape, the majority of the people laying on that floor dead from cyanide laced Kool-Aid is us. And so we as a people have to really be on top of our health and nutrition. Even African American women who are college educated and are affluent have higher rates of maternal death and pregnancy problems than white women. All of these things. So your concept of prosperity, your concepts of making it and education is important. But if you don't have a health component within that prosperity consciousness, you'll probably die quicker because now you're going to eat everything you never could eat in the past and you can eat more of it.
You know, it's interesting because when you talked about Clinton, former President Clinton acknowledging health disparities, he, if people can remember, always kept himself at McDonald's, just like
That's right.
Donald Trump.
That's right.
Always. And then when he had his heart attack, guess what? He changed his diet.
He's now on a vegan diet. He's on Dr. Dean Ornish, is a medical doctor who did studies to show that people who had coronary blockage to the point that they were scheduled for surgery through diet, in particular a near vegan diet, exercise, stress management techniques, they were able to reverse the blockage without surgery and without drugs. Now, the point is, it's a lot harder to stay on that kind of a diet than it is to lay on that table and let them crack your chest open. But at the end of the day, you're going to get so much more out of changing your diet, because even when they do that surgery, if you don't change your diet, you're going to clog up those arteries again. It's just like the people who go on the weight loss surgery. If you don't stick to a diet, you're going to gain that weight back.
Well, it's like I thought that if a person had a cancer procedure and it was in remission, that was it.
Yeah.
Not knowing that a person could get the cancer again. A lot of it has to do with diet. I remember when I was invited to be on the Oprah Winfrey Show in Chicago, and I was then asked to come to Mayor Harold Washington's office, who was the only African American mayor at that time. His love was for McDonald's.
Yeah.
And he died of a heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's what I'm saying.
So we're not trying to knock nobody. I don't want people to think we're talking about the relationship to your diet. I mean, it's very, very important. And not only that, it's very costly.
And,
go ahead.
Well, what I'll say is that when I left New York and came to Hawaii, I left New York in November of 1981. Based upon all the things that I had been doing back there in New York, January of 1982, I was given jump rope lecture and heart healthy nutrition presentation at the University of Hawaii under the auspices of the American Heart Association. Through the American Heart Association, they deemed me a celebrity chairperson and sent me to more than 60% of all of the schools in the state of Hawaii to promote nutrition and jump rope fitness. Mm-hmm. And so it's just one of those things, as I say, sometimes you'll be received as a prophet everywhere but in your own home. Everything that I was talking about back there in New York, yes, there were people who respected it. But when I came to Hawaii, they just gobbled me up. We talk about cancer. The first time I went for an after-dinner speech record, I did it to coincide with the Ironman Triathlon's carbohydrate loading party. And I also did it to bring attention to the fact that Native Hawaiians have some of the highest rates of cancer. And in the newspaper that said that diet was a major factor. Now, what happened with the Native Hawaiian people is that when the soldiers and everybody Hawaii is the spam capital of America.
The who?
Spam. S-P-A-M, spam, spice ham, canned ham.
Get out of here. Really?
Yes. And so you got it. So when it's all said and done, when Captain Cook came to Hawaii, there was a doctor who wrote a book. He talked about when Captain Cook came to Hawaii, he wrote about how the people were tall and lean of stature. And now they have some of the highest rates, just like us, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, because they're on that same American diet, that high fat diet, high salt diet, etc. You're not going to be able to get away from these things. And it's not about as I said, adults don't like to be told what to do, even if what you're telling them is something for their own good. And as I was talking to a brother the other day, an acupuncturist friend of mine, I said, the most important thing that I can do is explain to people, we as a people are dying. Here's some of the reasons we're dying. Here's some of the things that you can do to reduce that. If you're interested, wonderful. If you're not, things are going to happen to you. Now, nobody gets out of life without being dead, okay? So we're all
you don't leave this earth alive, that's for sure.
Right, you ain't leaving this earth alive. But as the scriptures ask, at the back of my book on philosophy of divine nutrition, I have the book of Ecclesiastes, and it asks a very profound question. Why should you die before your time? Life expectancy for African Americans is much lower than it is for white Americans. And the idea is that, again, I was a Social Security disability advocate. I can't remember the guy's name, but in the 1970s, he suggested that maybe they lower the eligibility for Social Security for Black people because we didn't live as long. So here we as a people, we pay into that Social Security system, but we have a shorter lifespan. We don't make the money off of it like other people do. So if for no other reason than being able to get the money that you put in, you want to have a healthier lifestyle. That healthy lifestyle is going to pay off in so many ways. Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, gee, I hope I'm in pain all day today. I hope my hands are so crippled I can't open up a can. I hope my knees hurt so bad I can't stand up. Nobody wants to be sick. But, a lady made a statement that I will never forget, and it wasn't in a church. She said, salvation is for everyone. Not everyone is willing to live a life of salvation. Health is for everyone. Not everyone is willing to live the life that produces health. People still smoking cigarettes.
It's interesting. I was in a meeting this past weekend, and I did not realize that, and because I rarely get sick, that, when you call ambulance 911, right? I did not know that back then, about 2 or 3 years ago, it costs $900 for them to come and get you. And as we're talking, the guys were saying that now, 2023, they're going to bill you $1,200 to come knock on your door and take you to the hospital.
Oh, yeah. Here in Hawaii.
Very expensive. It's very expensive to get sick.
Very expensive. Here in Hawaii, the major hospitals are on the island of Oahu. For people that are not familiar, there's 5 islands in Hawaii, just like you have the 5 boroughs of New York. Oahu is the Manhattan for Hawaii. If you should have a serious illness over here on the Big Island, they have to medevac you in a helicopter. If you think $12,000 for an ambulance is high, they're going to charge you $20 or more to put you in that helicopter and bring you from the Big Island over to Oahu. So just being healthy is good for your pocketbook, if nothing else.
Yeah. Definitely so.
And that's the way people need to think about it. I mean, why should you die? Why should you suffer needlessly? And, you take pills for pain, but those pills that you're taking for pain, they're going to ruin your liver, your stomach, your kidneys and everything else over a period of time. So, if you can find ways that are relatively inexpensive, that will help you feel better about yourself, okay? And that's the one thing. You go to a numerologist tells you these are some of the things that you will be able to do. But if your health holds you back, then even if you know the things that you could do, even if you know the things that you could manifest, bad health is holding you back from being able to put the kind of energy into your profession or what you want to do. I was talking to you last night. Here, you were up at 12 o'clock last night. You've got the energy to do that.
Yeah.
But if you're sick, you can't do it.
What's interesting in my book, Numbers in You, when I talk about the chapter on money, I open by saying all the money in the world don't mean nothing if you don't have your health.
You don't have your health. I tell people, again, I'm a Social Security disability advocate, and even I do that I do it as a part of my life coaching. And I tell people all the time, don't work hard all your life just to wind up giving the majority of the money to the doctor and the pharmacist. Because now the only thing you can do is doctor, pharmacist, supermarket, and church. That's about all you can do. And you're lucky if you can sit in church for the 2 hours and so on, because your back hurts, your knees hurts, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'll be 70 years old this September. Part of my retirement plan was to do this life coaching business, but also to even get stricter into my health. You know, as I was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can never get so arrogant to think that you can't improve. And as I say to you when I started off, and I'm just saying this, I'm saying it to you, but I'm also saying it to myself, is that part of my goal, now that I've done my world records, 3 was my goal, I hit my mark. Right now, my goal is to lose about 15 pounds. Because over the last, I want to say 10 years, I have gained weight, even though, again, I may not look overweight. From a health standpoint, I know there are things that I can improve. Not my diet. I just have to. I was having a lot of hip pains and pains from years of exercise and so on, and it slowed me down. And as you get older and you slow down, it's not just a question of weight. It's a question of your blood pressure, your cholesterol, all of those things, that your diabetes, you know, the blood sugar, all of those things start coming on you. You know, what you do as a teenager, it'll catch up with you when you get to be 50 and 60 and 70.
Yeah, it all does over time. Yep. That's why they
You.
say you pay the price now, or if not, you pay it later.
That's right.
And
That's
normally
right.
when you pay it later, it's more expensive.
Much more expensive and much more severe. You know,
why do you think in this country the emphasis, like other countries, so-called civilized, use a preventive approach to health, where that method is not used here? It's almost wait till you get sick or very ill, and then we come out with a slew of medicines, a slew of procedures, a slew of, you know, all kinds of things.
Healthcare in America is based on a business model. So if I make money seeing people for heart disease, if I'm able to teach people how to reduce heart disease, I lose money. If I make money on pain pills, teaching people how to reduce pain, even though it sounds very sick and it's corrupt as far as I'm concerned, but the bottom line is that the healthcare system of America is based upon making money. It's a business model. It's not a health model. Whereas these other places, they have universal health care. It is to the advantage of those societies to have strong, healthy people. We're dealing in a society that has always had a history of discrimination and has always had a history of somebody needs to be at the bottom. It doesn't help the people who are trying to keep those people down if those people are strong and healthy and educated. If you look into the history of public health education, you'll see even here in Hawaii, there were 5 major corporations that pretty much ran the place. They were they were very much against public education. Why? You don't need educated farmers. You don't need educated pineapple pickers. Okay, and that goes across the board. You don't need the more educated, the more likely they are to question what you do
and why you do it,
and how you're doing it. And the more, and again, in a business model where sick is what makes the money, you're not there to make sure that nobody ever comes back to you say you rarely go to the doctor. Well, if everybody that went to that doctor 5 years ago didn't have to go back again for another 5 years, he's in bad shape.
They'd be out of business.
I worked with a dentist, and the dentist talked about how the American Dental Association was so effective in teaching people about brush after each meal and floss. The money that they used to make on treating cavities went down like anything. That's when they came out with adult braces and Invisalign and teeth whitening and everything else. They had to come up with other dental things to make up for the loss of money because people were brushing and they weren't having as many dental cavities as they were in the past. So again, the American medical system is based upon a business model, and business means we want to see you eat as much as you want. We'll make more. You know, the business model is, the sicker you are, the better patient you are.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you listen to some of the commercials when they're, and by the way, this is the only country that is allowed to entirely all day have medical commercials.
Medical commercials.
This drug, that drug,
right.
And yet it's not allowed in other nations.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
But
it's it is pushed. And the one thing when I first met you and really got to know you, and by the way, for those, he was blessed with a very sweet mom. I think you and I were in competitions because both our moms was lovely, you know?
That's why we are with the men that we are today.
Yep. You said that there was an occupation that tended to have the longest longevity because of what they do. You said they were beekeepers.
Beekeepers and symphony conductors. And
Oh, really? Now
yeah,
that I didn't know.
yeah,
What's up?
symphony,
What's the magic with symphony conductors?
well, they're holding their hands up over their heart. And how many times have you ever seen an overweight symphony conductor? But that exercise is one of the things that is very good for them. It's kind of like their own form of heart exercise and so on. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now,
And
I don't know what their
beekeepers.
diet is. And the beekeepers, well, I mean, the beekeepers, it's called apiarian nutrition. So things like
Oh,
honey,
ho. Excuse me. Can you slow down? What was that you just said, Donald?
apiary is a beehive. So apiarian nutrition, again, that's something in my book. Bee pollen, which is flower pollen collected by the bees. Propolis, which is a waxy substance that has been found. They used to refer to propolis as Russian penicillin because it was recognized as having antibiotic properties. Royal jelly, which is the exclusive food of the queen bee. Queen bee grows 3 times larger than any other bee as a result of the food that she's on. And in the Asian countries, royal jelly has always been recognized for both cosmetic benefit as well as for energy. And of course, honey. Now, the man who taught me all about this, of course, is the late, great Dr. John Moore.
Yes.
And Dr. Moore was the one that had me on specific types of honeys for my throat. I mean,
He was supervising you, in fact, when you were taking the records.
When I talk about Dr. Moore, I say this to people. The Guinness Book of Records gives you a 5-minute rest after every completed hour. For 93 hours, I had 92 5-minute rest breaks. Dr. Moore was in my corner for all 92.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Okay, for all 92. And so when it came time for the herbs, when it came time for the type of honey that would keep your throat together, that was the man that was putting me on. Quick example of something. Today, there are over 4,000 energy drinks. In 1978, over 4,000 different types of energy drinks. In 1978, there was no such thing as an energy drink market. 5-hour energy, Red Bull, Monster, etc., did not exist when I did that 93-hour record. The same year I did that 93-hour record is the same year Dick Gregory did his run from California to New York, 50 miles a day, every other day. And he said he attributed to his formula 4X, which was a herbal nutritional formula.
And that's where he came out the famous Bohemian diet.
Gregory diet, right. And even I did a TV show with him, and he said, had he not been a celebrity, he wouldn't have gotten the type of publicity that he got to do that. And so one of the things that I'm always saying to people to this day, 93 hours is 18 times greater than 5 hours. I have no intentions of ever stopping until they throw the dirt over my face, because I have formulas that's worth billions of dollars today. No one has been able to do something for 93 straight hours in the name of nutrition.
You know, I'm going to tell you, for people, it's one thing to hear you say it, but to witness you go through it and what it took. And I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And yes, I see why you got in the Guinness records 3 times.
Well, you know, and again, brother, the point is that I have always been devoted to public health education. I like to always tell people I preached the world's longest sermon on 125th Street and never passed a plate, never raised an offering, never asked for any money.
You certainly didn't.
Okay. You're interviewing me in my home in Hawaii today. And so my willingness to give of myself, I had knowledge that helped people reduce pain and suffering. I had knowledge that helped people reduce premature death and disease. And as I said, when I came to Hawaii, they latched on to me like I was the second coming. But I will always feel good about knowing I hold 3 Guinness Book World Records. All 3 were done in Harlem to bring to the attention of my community and other communities what we could do to reduce pain and suffering in the here and now. Not when you die, but in the here and now. And I will always feel good about that. As I said to someone, if I walk into a restaurant and I see people choking, I know the Heimlich maneuver. I feel morally obligated to at least walk up to you and offer my services. If you say, get away from me, then that's what I'll do. But the bottom line is, even while I walk away from you, you're still choking. All of these years since I've left.
Interesting.
Okay, you're still choking. All of these years I've been gone from New York, the health among Black people has gotten worse, hasn't gotten better. Like I said, when I left New York, they were telling me water pollution had nothing to do with Black people. the whole reason that we as a people, as well as Native Americans and Native Hawaiians, had higher death rates from COVID is because we had higher pre-morbidity factors, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, asthma, all of those things we were walking around with for years before COVID came on the scene. A virus is an opportunist, and a virus is always looking for the weakest to take out first. So that's why viruses in general, they kill the old people and they kill people who have preconditions. So as much as people didn't want to handle or deal with some of those things, when you talked about diabetes, of the various pre-morbidity conditions, diabetes was one of the main ones that people who died from COVID had. Because with that diabetes also comes kidney failure, circulatory problems. All of those things makes your immune system weaker.
And oftentimes that also leads to amputation of a limb or
legs. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I tell you this, Donald, the one thing about it, I learned a lot from you. Like, for example, you introduced me to bee pollen, to propolis, and then you have a new brand that's coming out. And in fact, let me put the banner up so people will know how to get in touch with you. And let's do this a second. There he is there. Dr. Donald Thomas. You are Dr. Donald Thomas as far as I'm concerned.
Doctor of Philosophy, Metaphysical Philosophy.
That's right. That's right. It's official too. 3 times Guinness record holder, nutritionist, author, lecturer, life coach. And these are your sites. Now, again, let me show the book. Where can people still get the book? They can still get the book, right?
As I said, the book is now available, and that again, that's the first edition. If you go on Amazon, you may find that one and the second one. But on New Jump Swing website, you can download the ebook, which is also on Amazon. And that the book that you can download, that is the 3rd edition. You know you're gonna like that.
Yeah.
And that is and that's the most up to date. So as far as the most up to date information, knowledge increases. Whatever information was about nutrition in 1978 or 1985, knowledge has increased. And so I will always, every couple of years, at this point, try to update the book in terms of some of the latest information regarding health and nutrition.
Well, actually, Donald, from me knowing you all these decades, you were actually way ahead of the curve, where now people are talking about meatless diets, organic diets,
meat-free athletes, athletes for training. And that was a big push of mine. What can athletes use for more energy and recovery other than drugs and steroids and things of that nature? And so that's a big thing now. And as I say, that's one of the basis of my book from 1977.
Donald, I tell you,
real quick, I want to say something to you.
Right ahead, please.
I turned you on to the bee pollen, and bee pollen is a very good food. Some people have an allergy to bee pollen, and so this is why on my website, newjumpswing.com, you can also order flower pollen. During the days of the Dick Gregory diet, Cernington America was the major sponsor for that diet, and they sold flower pollen. When they went out of business, another company took over called Graminex, and I have been working with that company since the 1980s. The difference between that flower pollen and the Graminex flower pollen, their flower pollen, they used a chemical to break down the outer shell of the pollen. Graminex uses a biological or an enzyme to break down, so it's less allergic to more people. So if a person has any allergies to bee products, that flower pollen is something that I now recommend across the board.
Well, hold on, Don, let me show this banner before we bring this to a close, because how can people get in touch with you? And I know you didn't give a phone number because you'll probably be busy, but your site is newjumpswing.com.
And that's the Black Arachnite, the Black Spiderman. That's for people who are into the comic books. As I say, you name it, I have it right now. The first 38 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man was written by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I have from number 2 up to that number 38, and I'm now selling them on eBay right now. That's the holy grail of The Amazing Spider-Man. But the point is that reading is fundamental. If we can get kids to read Harry Potter, Spider-Man, Black Panther, whatever it takes to encourage them to read, I gave a doctor some books on Doctor Strange, and he came back to me. He said, "Hey, that wasn't written for a kid. They use a lot of big words in that comic book." I said, "Yes, they do."
Yeah.
Marvel Comics was known for not talking down to people. That's why Stan Lee was big on the college scene, because they wrote those comic books at a much higher level than your average newspaper. But newjumpswing.com, I'm a life coach. You can contact me on that website as far as life coaching. My life coaching services include Social Security, how to set and maintain your goals in life. I started off as an attendant on the ward in the mental hospital and a psychology major. In Hawaii, I went on to be an executive director of a mental health agency, one of the statewide coordinators of all mental health services. So if you're involved in business, if you're involved in trying to increase your professionalism, that is a significant part of what I do. And of course, fitness and nutrition. And since being in Hawaii, not everybody was happy to see homeboy from Brownsville sitting up there in my positions. I've had lawsuits in the name of race, sex, and age discrimination, and I've won all of them. And so
Hold up, repeat what you just said.
I've had lawsuits based upon jobs that I've worked on in which I've had to sue in the name of race, sexual harassment, and age discrimination since living in Hawaii. All three I've had to sue, and I've won those cases every time. And if there are people who are having problems on jobs with any form of discrimination, I can work with you to tell you what you need to do to build a case that is going to win.
Knowing you and the fact you broke those records, I would have told them they shouldn't do that. Okay. And you see, I said, you should do that.
When you poke the bear, it really winds up being bad for the bear.
Donald, hold on 1 second, because I want you to have the last word in that sense. For you. I just want to let some people know Donald and I can talk for days. We have a history. Let me say this. This Wednesday, we're going to get back to readings. I'm going to be joining this beautiful lady, Kay Cosmic. She and I are going to be reading people during the entire show. The last about week and a half, there were no readings at all. Thank you for your patience, but still thank you for your support too, because it's not just about getting your numbers, getting your signs and all that stuff, but also learning about health and diet and, all the things that relate to us, that if you're going to have a very beneficial life, these are some of the things you need to do. And in addition, I want to let you know that my app is out, a Star 8. It is now available only on Android, but it will be coming out on Apple soon. So I just ask, please be patient. I had no idea some of the things you have to go through to get it up, but just go to my website, astar8.com, or visit lloyd-strayhorn.com and click on it there. You can also click on and hear the podcast. In fact, this conversation that Donald and I have about health and nutrition will be on the podcast in about another month or two. My audiobook is now up. It's about 8 hours and 44 minutes worth of recording in my voice. You can get them. And on my media site, what I've done, thanks to Miss Williams, is you can now actually hear snippets. So today, if you go to my website, what's that? Instagram, Facebook, all those things, you will find that I did a little snippet about compatibility and attractions, and also about money. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a snippet about how I was introduced and met Denzel Washington backstage, and how the 28 was very significant in his life, and some other things too. Also, I want to let you know that Simon is always helping and supporting. And also, by the way, on the 19th of this month, we will be talking and coming here talking about the event that's going to be in New Orleans on August the 17th through the 20th. All righty. So that's it there. And also, where is it? My April newsletter is now out. So all you got to do is go to lloyd-strayhorn.com or go to linktree/numbers&you, where you can see all the things that I have. So it's there. That's the book. That's the podcast. And this is one of for me, a proud accomplishment to provide an app, and it's called a Star 8, like a star in the heavens, is the number 8, which represents infinity, time. It has a lot of symbologies other than an 8 and just being Capricorn and money in Aquarius and Libra too. But that will be it. And don't forget, this Wednesday we're going to have this beautiful young lady, and she is good. Well, everybody I feel is good, which is why they are on the show, and so people will give me nice compliments, but actually the compliments need to go to such guests that I have like today and everything. So, my man, any closing words, sir?
Last thing I wanted to say to everyone who has ever listened to you is to understand that once you get that reading, it doesn't matter unless you put it into practice. If you listen to me right now, I'm celebrating my 3rd world record. That is because I consulted with Lloyd Strayhorn. He didn't tell me to break the records, but he gave me the guidance that I needed to be able to not just break those records. Of all the people who have broke Guinness records in the name of health and nutrition, I'm the guy who's standing out among the crowd. And that is the most important thing I can say to you is it's one thing to know the numbers. It's another thing to put what you have heard into a practice. That's
And
where
I bear witness on all 3 of your Guinness record breaking events. I bear witness.
Yes, we have. So it's not just getting the information, but putting the information into effect. And so I'm sitting here in Hawaii as a 3-time world record holder. A significant part of the people that I went to for counseling is the person that you go to every Monday and Wednesday. Not only is he telling you something, put it into effect and you'll see how effective it is for you.
And if you want to get to know some of the specifics about his record, I have in my book, Donald Thomas, Guinness record book holder, because I have numerology and events where actually from people that I've met, people that I've been involved with, such as Donald. And I mentioned how he broke his Guinness records there. So everybody, I want to thank you very, very much. Donald, you are the best, man. Give my love to Pam. You know what I'm saying?
Will do.
It'll be. I'll come to Hawaii soon, boy. It's a long trip, but that's too much water around that little piece of island, man. That was the only thing. It's like, whoa, okay.
I don't leave the island that often. I don't leave the island that often. The king of Hawaii put out in the Constitution in the 1800s. He put out something: if you were a slave and you got to Hawaii, they could not extradite you, and they would not send you back. That was a part of the Hawaii. It's in the beginning of my book. You'll read that was a part of the Hawaii Kingdom Constitution. If you made it to Hawaii, they could not extradite you. Bounty hunter couldn't come from the mainland and bring you back. You were here. And so I say to my wife all the time, I don't want to go back because they might try to keep me like 12 years a slave.
You got issues, Donald.
I got issues. Okay.
I got issues too. Hey, listen, what you gonna do? Everybody, Donald, thank you so much, man. You have a blessed day, and all my best to the lady of the house and your kids, your favorite dogs. One of them people when I came there, I never forgot him either. But it's all right, I forgave it. All right. Anyway, have a blessed day, Donald.
You as well.
All of you all have a blessed day. You all take good care, and we will be back on Wednesday when I have my very special guest, Ms. K Cosmic. That's going to be interesting. She's going to be reading the cards, and I'm going to be reading the numbers and the stars. So we'll be back on point, and we will start having more people to guide you in that way. But I think knowledge is also very important, and you'd be surprised that how helpful it would be. So everybody, you'll have a blessed day, and you'll take good care until then. All righty, and it's very important that you do, because health is wealth.